Hello, everyone. This is Nancy Rebecca, and I'm a registered nurse, but I also am a clairvoyant. I work and have worked as a psychic healer for over 20 years. And about 12 years ago, I was approached by someone who asked me if I could teach them how to do what I do. And I said I wasn't quite sure, but I would be happy to give it a try. And that's when I started teaching weekend workshops on intuitive development. And over those years, we've really taken it to a whole nother level where we take it more to that psychic precision, where with intuitive development, it's just taking it to that next level. And one of the things that Spirit has asked me to always do is help everyone to remind them that you are a spirit having a human experience, but also to take this work out of the closet, those places where people may still kind of find it a little frightening to talk about, to think about. And now even more so, it's about normalizing these natural gifts and abilities that we are born with. And so out of that, is born these interviews where I'm interviewing individuals who have intuitive and psychic abilities, and that they could work side by side with you and you might not even know it. And so today I have the pleasure of interviewing Maggie McGlynn. And I met Maggie, welcome. I met Maggie, we were just talking about it before I started this recording. I think it was about 10 years ago, where I went out to North Carolina to teach weekend workshops on intuitive development, and she attended one of those. And then she's going to talk a little bit more about her work with horses a little bit later on, but I went out there to participate in her work with horses and what she was facilitating. And she has continued to take classes, and she's traveled to Nepal with me. She's traveled to South Africa with me. And we definitely have moved over into that, not just the student teacher relationship, but we've now moved over into the friend relationship. So welcome very much, Maggie. Thank you so much for being willing to be interviewed today for this series that we're doing. Yeah.
I'm very glad to do so, Nancy. And now that we're considered friends, I can probably tell you that when someone told me about your class the first time and how much time we would spend meditating, I was like, no way, I'm not interested. And then the person attended the session. She came back to me and she said, no, really, Maggie, you really, really should take this. And I'm like, I hate the sound of that.
I'm meditating.
I'm meditating. And so, but I took the class on her suggestion, and I believe I took that first weekend and signed up for the whole program after that.
Signed up for the whole program. And you literally flew from North Carolina here to Tacoma, Washington before it was a virtual program. That's commitment. That's spirit driven for sure.
And I did it with my wife, Mary Jean, the two of us. Friday afternoon, hopped on a plane, and then came home Sunday night. I earned a lot of miles.
Yes, you did.
Flyer miles.
Well, and so I know there's a lot that I know about you, and there's a lot that I don't know about you, and that I'm really excited to hear about today. And most of that is about kind of those early years, like, you know, we definitely know you live in North Carolina, so maybe you could tell us a little bit more about that and your family. And I'm really curious about, did you have abilities? Did you know that you had abilities growing up? And what does that look like for you?
Sure. Well, I'm in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. I moved here about 30 years ago with my wife, Mary Jean, having grown up in Minneapolis. I'm the youngest of 8 kids in an Irish Catholic family. Wow. And so I would say, I was reflecting on this, in preparation for the interview. And I realized that probably the earliest years, I was so involved in just kind of surviving in a big group of people in a home. I noticed that my first recognizing or distinct experiences really started happening more as an adult in my early 20s. Now, I will say, as a youngster, I did have a very full dream life. And now that I look back, I realize how important that was, and as a mechanism for connecting with spirit. So I talked in my sleep, I walked in my sleep, I dreamt vivid,
Wow.
big dreams all through college. And I try and write down the dreams, but it would be so much that I actually set it aside. But I know that's an important world for me. And I've had my first psychic reading when I was probably 21. And somehow I happened upon learning about a pair of brother-sister twins who were psychics. And what I remember from that first time I had, of course, this is, 40, I'm turning 64. So this is 40 plus years ago, before you recorded them, before you had a dictation app. I just went and listened to this woman, Echo Bodine. And what I recall is she called in her brother from the other room to say, look at this. Have you ever seen anything like this? And honestly, I don't know what it was that they saw, but they were so taken by the otherworldliness of what was going on that stuck with me for sure. And I thought, well, that's weird. Does that
So they were looking at you.
Mm-hmm.
And they were both looking at you, they're psychic, and they're seeing something which was your energy field at the time. You might not have known that's
correct.
Yeah.
And they found it extraordinary in some form or fashion, such that she called in her brother to take a look. Wow. So anyway, so that had an impression on me. And I had quite a few psychic readings after that. And times when people would say, wow, I see you as part of a council. And they often just talked about really extraordinary things, in my view. But I was like, okay, that's cool. And am I really good enough to be like that? Probably not. So I just kept going on my merry way. I had an experience a couple years later, still in my mid-20s, where I went with a friend up to the Apostle Island, where some friends had a home. And what I did not know when I went there is that she channeled someone. And so I had an experience where she began the process, and I just saw these bright, sparkling lights and essence in the room. And then she channeled someone, and it was very profound at the moment. Again, there's no tape recorder going on. And they said, have you seen ghosts before? They see them. I'm like, wow. So that's pretty great.
Now, some people don't know what channeling is. So would you mind just explaining what you know that to mean?
Well, what my experience was that she went into a kind of a trance state, kind of a quiet state. And when she shared information, it came across, she identified herself as with a different name, had a different voice that actually sounded like a male voice, and it was a very profound statements that they really spoke to, things coming from the universe or wherever. So it was like, it was a different person coming through. That was pretty wild. In my view, it was a little.
Yeah. That's what I was going to ask. Like, did it frighten you or make you curious, or was there like a peace in the room? It sounds like you could see things that you hadn't seen before.
I was not frightened. It was very intriguing. I was very curious. And it kind of fostered this sense of, wow, there's a lot that other people can offer to me, and sharing information. It kind of added to my wanting to go to see other psychics, to tell you the truth.
Oh, okay. Well, go ahead.
Let me give one last little story, because this is another experience I had, which was actually in college. I was driving a van from Winona to Rochester, and I was going up a windy road that was going up the bluffs. It was raining in the valley, but it was snowing up on the bluffs. the wind caught my van, and all of a sudden I'm spinning around and I'm seeing headlight, tail light, headlight, tail light. And what I realized was I was either going to smash into the bluff or I was going to fall off the cliff.
Oh,
I was pretty certain that this was the end because I could do nothing. And a sense of surrender and calm and peace and a joyfulness, as odd as that sounds, came over me. And I loved it. I loved that feeling. Needless to say, I did not die. My van just stopped. And so now the next day, what I saw in the daylight is that the only patch of snow on the entire road is what my van slid into.
wow.
But since then, that experience of a peace and calm that was not from this world, I can still recreate it, and I want to live that. And that has really, I think, propelled me to keep on this kind of work that, again, I put in that otherworldly kind of category.
Yeah. Yeah, I can relate to that as well, where my out-of-body experience was not a near death. It was from my first attempt to meditate, but that peace, that is something I can always reach for during times of great stress and just stress and upset in life. I can tap into that level again.
I never thought about that as an out-of-body experience until you just said that.
Yeah, I'm not, there's so many ways that you can describe it, but for me, it was definitely out of body because I was looking at my body after I meditated. So I definitely knew I wasn't in my body, but exactly what you described is what I felt, this deep sense of peace that came over me that I had never experienced in any other aspect of my life.
Yeah.
But I did kind of want to go back a little bit because here we are in the year 2021. And for me, as I'm kind of tapping into how life is unfolding in this kind of unconscious, conscious awakening that we're going through, this kind of unfolding, expanding in a spiritual perspective. And one of the things, I'm not a big dreamer. So I've always been, I've had dream envy, sometimes when you've shared some of your dreams with me. But one of the things, Maggie, that I keep getting from the spirit realm is that gift of prophecy, what I call prophetic dreaming, is really on the rise for a lot of people that may have never been dreamers before, or maybe they were dreamers, but it's going to another level. Would you say that you've ever had a prophetic type dream? And how do you discern, for those who are watching this video, what's the difference? How can you tell the difference?
Of a prophetic dream from
one that's going to come true, or that it has some truth to it?
Yeah. Well, I would say it's more for me, it's more the latter, that there is some truth to it. I don't know that I've had dreams where I dreamt something and then something came true in particular, but dreams, some of the most powerful dreams I've had relate to shifts and changes that are going on for me.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? So I know they're true to me and speak to me of moving through challenging times and stressful times. And especially, I used to have more recurring dreams than I do now. But boundaries, there's a good topic for anybody. I had a recurring dream where the boundaries from the neighbor kept getting closer and closer and closer and closer. And so I knew for me that I needed to kind of have a breakthrough around fear or the uncertainty that I had there.
So do you believe it is your spirit comes through your dreams to communicate? For sure.
Yeah, I definitely do, because I've also had dreams where I've gone other places where I like open up a hatch in the floor, go down steps and go into another world with other people and things.
Oh, wow.
So I know I go places for sure.
Wow. Yeah, I'm not a big dreamer. When I've asked Spirit about it, Spirit said my visual world during the day is so active that I need a break at night. But I always love hearing about your dreams.
I will say one thing just on getting a message in the moment is I had a very long convoluted dream that I won't go into, but one part of it was I was in a circle of women in my living room, and I noticed that I was levitating up the wall because someone had called for me to come fly with them. And while I was in the dream, I thought, oh, I can't do this. And I immediately dropped back down to the floor.
Oh, interesting.
And so I was like, Maggie, stop with the limiting beliefs, because who knows, because I could clearly got the message that you only stop yourself when you say, I can't, I shouldn't, that's not real, that's not right.
Wow. Okay, I have a list of questions that I want to ask you, but however, Spirit is tapping me on the shoulder and Spirit wants me to ask you this question. So here we are in 2021. We've all lived through 2020. We all have, that shared experience of a global pandemic. Mm-hmm. Did you have any dreams? I'm kind of putting you on the spot, without kind of asking you ahead of time. Do you remember any dreams that were significant during this big time of change on the earth?
Boy, I just know that during this past year, my activity in dream world accelerated, and it felt like there were lot bigger groups that I was dealing with in my dreams, if you get what I'm saying. So it wasn't kind of the normal day-to-day. It was very, and it was around moving people forward in things or completing on things. So I just know my activity in the dreams. Mm-hmm. It seemed like I was like more instrumental with large bodies of people than before.
So I'm always talking about, when I teach, it's about in our dream world, I always say it's like practicing for a play and you're rehearsing. It's the rehearsal. And then the dress rehearsal is when you've got just about everything nailed down. And then you're going to have the dress rehearsal before the audience comes the next day. So I'm always a big believer in this, in the dream world. So it sounds like that's what you were doing. You were really working with practicing, rehearsing to working with larger groups of people to kind of help move them. So
yeah. So I'd encourage anybody to pay attention to the dreams and jot down ideas if you can, because I tend to lose them after I wake up after a few minutes. So I'd say it's worth it. And, from that prophecy standpoint, I'll pay a little more attention to that.
Yeah, it's just been coming through actually the past few weeks. That 2021, we're going to be seeing a lot more prophetic type dreams, kind of letting us know kind of what's ahead. So yeah, I'll be tapping you for that wisdom.
Okay.
All right. So what do you consider your intuitive gifts? So, when I'm teaching, we talk about the clairs. So that's the clear feeling, clear hearing, clear seeing, clear knowing. So I'd like you to kind of, in those kind of categories, what would you say are your most pronounced gifts and abilities? And then how do you work with those abilities in your day-to-day life?
Sure. I would say probably the strongest is clear knowing, because I tend to just like get it without a lot of other processing, or even get it before I get in the room with folks. And I would say the clear hearing has also been important to me in my work. And that's where I feel like both in work and regular life. So I work I've had my own consulting firm since we moved here. So for 30 plus years. And I work with nonprofit organizations and as a facilitator primarily. I'm really helping people plan, sort through issues, work well together, get out of their own way, get over themselves, you know, good things like that, as well as training people in leadership development and other really kind of rising to the occasion. So I've worked with just hundreds and hundreds of nonprofits, small groups, large groups. I've worked both nationally and internationally. And so, you know, my job is to hear from a client what their intentions are and what outcomes they want to produce in a meeting or a gathering or a series. And I do the design work and the prepare people for those conversations, kind of create a container for the conversation. And then I facilitate. And I love, you know, I love it actually when I have a group of 40 people and they're all at round tables, you know, in a hotel ballroom, which of course we haven't done for over a year, where I can, you know, be Oprah out there and talk to people and really engage people and use a lot of methods for people to participate and engage with one another. So what happens is, you know, so with my abilities, one is I prepare the room and the projects ahead of time. So I'm really imagining best outcomes. I'm grounding, golding, all the good stuff that that we do to make the setting be the best. And then in the sessions, I really like to meet clients where they are. So we might have an agenda that says we're going to do ABC, but as it unfolds and I notice there's something up over here or a possibility to take over there, I'll go with it. And people have commented on that many times on how I just, you know, have a flow. And even when they go somewhere else, I really move them and get them to endpoints. So I think I'm using a lot of skills that I've had, I think, for a long time, but training has also added to that to have a good sense on where to go with folks, where to move people, and people have incredible experiences. I mean, they're like, we've never had such a successful process. And I'm like, well, what are other people doing?
Yeah.
You know, to me, it's pretty natural. This is how you show up and are a facilitator.
Yeah.
It's like, so why aren't you getting all these kind of results? So that's when I decided to train people as facilitators and in leading conversations and their own leadership.
Yeah.
Because I teach people some of the methods you teach us on how to be present and use those 4 core areas.
Because you can feel when that intuitive sense, it's like, oh, I need to stay with this conversation. I need to stay with this conversation and this person because it's going to have an impact on the whole room.
Yeah.
But I know that you may not know where it's going, but it sounds like you've cultivated that relationship and trusting your own spirit, your own soul, that it's going to be kind of for the highest good of all, if that's a basic statement a lot of people use, but it's going to have an outcome that's going to help uplift everyone in the room. It's going to be a teaching moment for everyone.
Yeah, but that's actually why in the beginning, I really talk with the client a lot about their intention and their desired outcomes. And they may start with one thing, but that's the first place I use my clear hearing and clear knowing is they're saying they're presenting this way, but actually as I listen to them, it's like, no, this is what's really most important because I'm up for transformation. I don't do just blah, blah. I'm always, I like to push people and move them to the highest good, however they define it, not by me, but it's their voice. So.
Yeah. So if they're going to bring you in as a facilitator, they need to know that this is my intention as a facilitator. I love transformation. So if you want to stay stuck, you might want to get somebody else.
Exactly. And I do have one client who says she brings me in for the tough meetings because she knows I can handle when there's disagreements, where there's entrenched stuff. She knows that I can move the group forward. And sometimes I'll have to say, I'm real clear about where it's going and what's happening. Yes, perhaps more than the client really understands and realizes for themselves.
Yeah.
And I got to believe that I know this is the right thing, even if
Yeah.
you're still,
Yeah.
it didn't turn out like you thought it would, but this was the best thing for that group, in fact, to process this conversation.
Yeah, I was doing a reading with someone last week who has some pretty serious health issues, but I found myself saying, you're thinking very much like a human. So let's shift, let's put on the spiritual hat and let's look at this same health issue from a spiritual perspective. And she was like, wow, I am thinking really human. We're human, we do. So it's great to have people like you who can say, all right, looks like you've already looked at this from this angle. Let's look at it from a different, let's just try looking at it from a different angle.
Right.
Awesome.
And now none of my clients will know that I'm really working out of that spiritual lens, because I don't necessarily say that. But what I do is I create ways for them to speak authentically and really very much from the heart, not from the head. And I find that that's where that love and compassion and all the stuff that makes people want to work in nonprofits or be good at jobs or be a good mom or whatever it is. That's the place where that lives. So they don't realize, but they just feel great when they leave.
Yeah. Oh, love it. So have you been, I think you've touched on this a little bit, but I'm going to touch on it again in the form of a question. And if you want to elaborate a little bit more, but it's about being public with your abilities, or do you tend to keep them private? And so you've already just said, I don't always say this is what I'm doing, because it sounds like it's pretty natural with everything else you offer.
Yeah. Well, I think that's changed over time. I think earlier in my career, also because I know I wasn't naming it. I didn't have the same comfort and cognition around that whole idea about being a spirit in a human body. You brought that to me, Nancy. I can thank you for naming that and being okay with that. So prior to that, I would say anything I did around my psychic stuff, I didn't necessarily mention it to people, certainly not in a work setting. But what I do notice is that I'm always in present time with people. I'm always grounding them, whether they realize it or not, whether it's an actual technique or not. So on one hand, I kind of model a sense of presence and being present and really being in a place of appreciation and inclusion. And to me, all those things are very spiritual in my view. I've always had a little bit of a woo-woo element when I do an activity or something, because it gets people to speak from the heart, whether it's from the first thing I do, where I ask people what I call first voice, it's like everybody in the room, to other particular activities. As of late, I have been more bold to talk openly in sessions with, there's a group on leadership that I've been working with for a couple of years. And in that second year working with them, I shared more about my whole life and inviting them to notice the spiritual aspects. And I even have offered to do readings for some people.
Wow.
That was big. That was actually just 4 months ago, when it was only with a group of 4 people, wasn't the whole group. And 3 of the 4 took me up on it. A couple of them were like, but I'm not sure, my religious upbringing. It's like, I trust you, Maggie, but boy, this is really different for me. Yeah. So what was nice is because they trusted me, I could do the reading for them. And it was, they got a lot out of it. So.
Yeah. And so do you feel like you could no longer live with that part of who you are kind of in the closet? Or is it you just felt it was just time to add that element to what you did?
I think over the years, I mean, I've used probably in the past 10 years, and I couch it as woo-woo. Of course, that's not actually great, but I'm trying to be as palatable to people as I can, kind of sneak it in on them. And so I've become more comfortable talking about that and inviting the possibilities for looking out bigger than ourselves.
Exactly.
And yeah, and I can't stop myself now. And so now I feel compelled to do, actually what I said to this client group was, help me by asking me for a reading because I want to enhance my practice.
Mm-hmm.
So I was, it's an exchange when we do.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And that's definitely how I began as well. I was very curious. I wanted to enhance my practice. As a nurse, I wanted to understand this human energy field. It was just like, I loved physiology. And, I said, I've said to someone I could talk to for a couple of hours about how the kidney works. And I would just be so excited and you'd be falling asleep, in your seat. But I wanted to understand the energetics. And, and so I did. I asked, can I look at your kidneys? Can I look at your livers? So, and a lot of people said yes, to help me. But I'm really happy to hear, like you said, you can't not do it now. There's certain sense of, I say feeling called to move forward in this work. In what ways do you use your abilities that might surprise people?
Well, my favorite way outside of work, you probably know this already, to use my abilities is Vegas, baby.
Oh.
So, and I did this before I took that class from Kim on how to use clairvoyance Vegas style. But the ability to, so I've had really ever since I was young, because we started playing poker as a family, because there were always enough people to have a good poker game going. And I always, laugh that I paid my way through college off of my family, from our family poker games. But I've always won. I have an uncanny ability to win. And I have fostered that because I believe you create your reality. So it's like, yes, you think I'm a winner? Yes, I am. And it shows up when I go to Vegas. And what I notice is there will be times when I have an absolute spurt of, I cannot lose, like for hours.
Wow.
And then when I try to replicate it, and I can't do it. So I have to really be at ease and be an appreciation of the connections and the energy of the machines, of the blackjack table, the crap table.
Oh my God, I love it. I love
it.
Numbers.
I was standing in a buffet line with my family to go for lunch, and I heard numbers and was drawn to a roulette table. That's a longer story than you have time for, but it paid off with a crazy throw $20 down on the number 5. It hits and I take $700. And people look at me. So anyway, that's the funnest way. People are surprised that I gamble to begin with.
Yes.
And then when I add that I use all of my abilities.
All of your abilities to include reading the energy. Yeah.
Read the energy when it's bad. Like at a crap table, if people are drunk and stupid, which a lot of people are, I'll bet with the house instead of those people. So, you can read energy where it's high and like, yes, come here. And, bad energy here. Okay, I'll bet against bad energy. So.
Yeah. Well, I will just, so one of the things that you said that really struck me was, if you're trying, I'm just going to use this analogy for teaching. If you're trying hard to be intuitive, it's not going to work very well.
Mhm.
And if you can just kind of let go and let the flow and kind of be light, I call it light-headed, light-minded, light-hearted,
Mhm.
then your own spirit can work with you and move through you more. And in the spirit world, it doesn't matter. As long as you're aligned with spirit and your spirit and your body, your human self are working together, it doesn't really matter, what you are doing. There isn't that kind of judgment on the other side. But I am just going to put a little addendum here that I have gone to Las Vegas, and if my spirit tells me to pick a machine, it's going to be a losing machine every time. So just because I am psychic does not mean I know the lottery numbers that are going to make me a millionaire. So I just want to say, not everybody who has the abilities are going to pick those winning numbers. So, but I love that story. Thank you. So my next question is, do you live with your gifts, and can you turn them on and off?
Well, I think they're running full steam all the time, personally. So can I turn them off? I can ignore them. I can say I don't want to spend my time there, but I mean, to me, it's intrinsic. It's the who I am. And the more I'm open and recognizing to all the little things. I mean, when you first asked me about this interview, I'm like, I don't know. I just kind of live life, and things show up in a lot of places. I guess that's what you call my intuition, my whatever, because it's kind of to me, it's a frame of mind,
Mhm,
a frame of heart.
mhm,
Uh, it's really more a way of being. Now,
mhm.
whether I want to step into something that pops up, I mean, I have free will, so I have choice about
Yeah.
what I want to do about it or not. I'm not the kind of person, some people are super empathic and they can't handle everybody's energy and that kind of stuff. I've never had a problem with being overwhelmed by others. If anything, I overwhelm them.
Mm.
I've kind of learned to pull it in, Maggie.
Mhm, mhm.
Um, so did that
Yeah,
answer the question?
you did. And I would say, I know in the beginning, I used to really try to shut it off for other people's comfort.
Mm,
It's almost like, I don't want to feel like I'm looking into their bedroom window kind of thing. But really, for me, it would be like putting my spirit on a shelf.
mhm.
And I can't, it just, it doesn't feel good to me. So I love what you said. I kind of dial it back a little bit,
Mhm.
or I will say, off duty.
Yeah.
Tell me I'm not off duty, I'm not reading the situation. Or I'll say, I just want to be a human today. I'm going to this company picnic in the park, and I just want to have fun. I don't want to see the spirits in the park today.
Yeah.
So I'm very intentional
Yeah.
that way.
Well, your gifts are very particular in what you do, see all the time. That's not me.
Yeah.
And so to me, it's just a great energetic field. And I attract people who want to engage that way. And I appreciate that.
Yeah. Nice, nice. So, and what inspired you to explore your abilities? And I think you've already talked about that a little bit, and to develop them more, though, because you had experiences that inspired you to want to have more of those types of experiences. But what was that moment when you said, I think I better develop these?
Yeah. When things started coming to me when I didn't know where they came from. So, like, I got an email about a training opportunity on appreciative inquiry. This was 20 years ago. And I went to it, and it has become one of the most important frames for work doing my organizational development work. And so things will present themselves, or people will present themselves, and it's like I kind of finally realized there is some method to the madness, that there is obviously kind of a bigger something here. And, I think when I was forced by spirit into your class, which was really when then it opened up. And I think, you create a space for people to be wherever you are and however you are and grow from there.
Yeah.
And that was very encouraging. Doing the work with Mary Jean, it was wonderful because we could be in it together. So it wasn't like this was my thing and she didn't know what was happening,
Yeah.
have separate lives around it. I think that made a big difference. So, I still have doubts about, am I good at reading and, blah, blah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't think that ever goes away. I tell people that all the time. Even for me, who's been doing a long time, I've done thousands and thousands of readings. You still get to work with yourself. You get to work with those insecurities. But I know that I could talk to you forever, because that would be the other thing, wanting to talk about what it's like being in a relationship with your wife and the both of you having that skill and ability. That can be for another time. But before I wrap up, I promised at the beginning, I want to talk a little bit about the horses. So anything that you want to say about your horse connection for all those people who might also have a horse connection or dream about horses or love horses, the spirit of horses. If you could just touch a little bit on that before we start to wrap up.
Okay, so I'd say a couple things about it. Here's a thing where it was presented to me. I mean, I grew up in the inner city in Minneapolis, not a lot of horses around there. But a number of years ago, I was introduced to someone who works with horses and uses that for leadership development and recognizes how horses are sentient beings and how they are the greatest teachers. And so I don't ride horses. I work with people with horses to gain the messages that they have for people. So it's called groundwork with horses. And that's where on my website, Shelley Whitehouse is a great friend and has been my partner in the horse work. She is a horsewoman, no question about it. And we've created programs where we bring out groups of people or individuals, like you came out one time, Nancy, to have an experience with the horses and really be seen and heard and felt and known by the horse and with the horse, and recognizing, because what happens is you recognize your abilities to connect and to actually, I mean, ultimately we have people move the horse just by your intention. No lines, no leads, no, sticks or anything. And it's like, look at the power of self when you are your authentic self. So they are great teachers for having you be in your body, present time, and being your authentic self. It's the only way that you can move a horse. And it's fabulous. And I loved when you were with My Horse Legacy. And
and what it's still a moment, where I will never forget it, because I told you very clearly, horses are big animals. I'm really intimidated by the massive size of horses. And I didn't know how to read a horse, and its intention, even though clearly I learned later, the horse truly knows how to read me and my intention. But I remember you had me step into this square, and whatever the intention was, and you were going to bring the horse over. And I remember this fear level came inside of me, and the Horse Legacy comes right up next to me. But what was interesting was, I think you were, in your facilitating, you were asking me where I was feeling it in my body and what was coming up for me. And I was kind of talking about this. And then Legacy's head dropped and Legacy's nose touched my feet. And it was like, all this tension just drained, like somebody took the plug out of a bathtub, and all this tension just drained out of my body, and I was completely at peace. And I remember saying to you, oh my gosh, this horse just healed me. It just healed me. So it was profound, and so I've never forgotten, and I have a lot of reverence for that work that you do. So it's beautiful work. So if anybody wanted to read more about horses and healing, is there a book that you recommend for them?
Oh, I can't tell you that right off.
Well, you tell me that later.
Yeah.
You can email it to me later, and I will include it in the link below when I upload the video. And then, are you doing private readings now? I know that you said that you're starting to do readings, and for those who are watching this video and wish to have, what's the best way that they can reach you? And I will also include a link for that in the description.
Yes, I've been thrust into greatness. I am doing readings. And, with the pandemic, my work thing changed a lot and created an opening for me to say yes to this. So people can email me. Do you want an email or a website?
Whatever, I can include both if you want.
Okay, well, let's put my website on there, because there's a place where you can go to contact me. So that's www.mcglynnleadership.com.
Great. And then they'll just put in their, they'll just contact you and leave you a little note, and you'll get back.
Yep. Yeah, it'll walk you through it.
Wonderful.
And I'll contact you.
Oh, I could talk forever, A, on the subject, but B, with you. And I've thoroughly enjoyed it. And thank you so much for raising a hand, saying, sure.
Yeah. Who did that? Somebody behind me. All of a sudden, I'll do that.
All right. Thanks again, Maggie, so much. And have a wonderful week, month of May, and this year of 2021. It's just, I can just feel it just going up, up, up. So
it's my birthday month.
Oh, happy birthday. All right. Thanks again, Maggie.
Thanks, Nancy.